with me. Bodani lefanecha, melechai v'kayam, shehechazarta b'nishmati nechemna, nechemna, Rabbi Immunity, Rabbi Immunity, Rabbi Immunity.
Good morning, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. So good to have you with us from wherever you are. It's good to feel connected this morning in prayer and in song together. We're going to begin this morning, whether you follow along with the liturgy that's on your screen, or if you've got a copy of our Mishkan Tefillah prayer book at your home, or if you're using the digital version of the Mishkan Tefillah flip book, which is available online. We'll do our best to guide you through the liturgy, both with the slides on your screen and with the page numbers as we go. We're going to begin this morning with the meditation that's on page 67 of our books. I entered the sacred space to voice the longings of my heart in prayer. In sacred company, I offer my love to the Holy One. I devote myself this morning to psalm and song, study and prayer. May my heart be lifted, may my thoughts be deepened, and may my soul, like the eagle, soar. We'll continue now with the prayer that we offer to give thanks for the miraculous gift of our bodies that guide us through curving pathways of illness and health and recovery. This prayer is on page 77 of your books. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware, we would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch ata Adonai, rofei chol basar umafli la'asot.
And after this prayer for our bodies, we now pray for our souls being restored. And I'm just thinking about the importance of our breath in this moment, in this time. It is hard to navigate the new normal, and sometimes we need to stop, and I need this right now to just stop and take a breath and remember that I was not trained in cantorial school for digital expertise at services. So just taking a breath together as we sing this prayer for our souls to be restored. Elohai Neshama. Elohai, Elohai. Sing that with me. Here we go. Elohai, Elohai. Neshama, Neshama. Let's try that together. Neshama, Neshama. Shenatata bi, Shenatata bi. Let's do that together. Shenatata bi, Shenatata bi. And the last part. Tehorahi, Tehorahi. All together. Tehorahi, Tehorahi. And I hope that you will imagine everyone who is listening singing together. Just like imagine all those voices coming together as one as we sing. Elohai, Elohai. And as we breathe. Neshama, Neshama. Shenatata bi, Shenatata bi. Tehorahi, Tehorahi. One last time, just those voices. Elohai, Elohai. And that breath. Neshama, Neshama. Shenatata bi, shenatata bi. Tehorahi, tehorahi. So at this time, we come to our blessings for the miracles of every day. And so as we chant these together, we're going to chant them half in Hebrew, so the first 2 lines in Hebrew, and then the English of each one. And you can either sing with me, you can sing Amen after each one. And we are going to pause in the middle to share our own miracles, big or small. So if you want to share those in the chat, and we can share some of them out loud when we get to the midpoint of these daily miracles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night. And Rabbi, if you want to echo me with some amens in there, I'd love it.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, remove sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids.
Amen.
So if you want to share any blessings in the chat, I know there's a little bit of a delay between when we are praying and when it appears on Facebook. So I'm going to keep going with the blessings. And if we see some pop up, we can share them. Or you can just be thinking of them to yourself. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me in the image of God.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me free.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor.
Amen.
And we have one, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for the miracle of a baby's laughter.
Amen.
And we have the blessings of technology, which can bring us together.
Amen.
The blessing of good health, sense of community and safety in being home. Amen. My youngest 21st birthday. Amen.
Amen.
And I will share being able to get outside because it hasn't started raining and walk my dog.
Amen.
We're still having a paper due, which is the perfect thing to do in isolation. Amen. So we encourage you to continue sharing those miracles. And we say to all of those blessings, to all of those miracles, Amen.
Amen.
And we continue with a blessing for Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen. On page 88 of our prayer books, there's this text that we traditionally follow right after that blessing for learning Torah because it's an excerpt from the Mishnah, an opportunity for us to do some learning together. when Cantor and I were looking over the service this week and preparing for our time together, one thing that jumped out at me about this particular text is how devoted to the needs of others this list of commandments is. It's a whole list of things that we can do to help other people's lives more beautiful and joyful and meaningful, to take care of people who are in mourning and those who are celebrating, to look after those who are vulnerable, to attend to our institutions of study and religious practice. So on page 88, we'll offer this scriptural reading together, reminding us of the sacred obligations we have to take care of others and our community. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people, but the study of Torah encompasses them all.
We continue with Psalm 150, Hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Let's try that together. Hallelujah, 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 El Bikocho, hallelujah. Hallelujah, Bikuruta, hallelujah, 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 take our Shabbat, hallelujah, never be Lord, hallelujah, Bitoku Mamon, hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 b'tzirtzele shama, hallelujah, b'tzirtzele tua, hallelujah, b'tzirtzele shama, hallelujah, b'tzirtzele tua, kol hanshama, hallelujah. Kol hanshama, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
We continue now with Chatzi Kaddish. If you're following along in a book, this is on page 106.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba ve'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael bagala u'v'zman karib v'imeru amen Yehei shemei Rabba mevarach Le'alam ulal me'almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal shemei dekudsha b'richu le'la min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imeru Amen.
Continuing now on page 108 in our books, we rise physically or spiritually or barchu.
et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uborei choshech, oseh shalom uborei et hakol. Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, mal'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or she'asita yifa'arucha selah. Or Chadash al Tzion Ta'ir, v'nizkei chulanu mehera le'oro, Baruch Ata Adonai Yotzer HaMeorot.
Amen. And we sing Shema together with a nice deep breath to start. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. If you are standing, you may be seated as we continue with Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzavecha Hayon levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai Vitem kiroshim lelohechem, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotzaiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem lelohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem. We continue now with our Micha Mocha prayer. And these words come in our Torah right after the Israelites have been freed from slavery in Egypt. They have crossed the Red Sea and now are liberated and facing a new world ahead. And so it feels very fitting. This is the story we are about to tell at our Passover Seders coming up this week. And so as we sing Micha Mocha together, we can begin to feel there is excitement in Passover, and it's maybe different this year, but it still feels good to come home to the Jewish calendar. Let the Jewish calendar hold us in this uncertain time. And so let's rejoice in Micha Mocha with a little joy of Pesach in our minds. So we are now going to continue with the Amidah. And if there's something you're praying for this morning that you want to share in the feed, we would love that, to just feel like we are all praying together this morning. And so if you are comfortable to rise in your heart, in your body, we continue with the Amidah. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. We continue. We're on page 126 in the books if you're using them. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. We continue with the Kedusha, and when we get to the word for holy, Kadosh, we sing it 3 times. We go up on our toes together on those words, and on the words Baruch and Yiloch, that we can feel this holiness all together wherever we are as a community. Nikadesh et shimcha ba'olam, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאיך, וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, אלוה כל הארץ, כבודו. אדיר, אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. Baruch kevod Adonai במקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ורחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי יחיו לדור ודור. Hallelujah. And if you want to repeat after me, לדור ודור, דור ודור, לדור ודור,
דור ודור,
לדור ודור נגיד לך. Let's try, Rabbi. Ready? לדור ודור,
דור ודור,
לדור ודור,
דור ודור,
לדור ודור נגיד לך. ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו, ויקינו לא ימוש, לעולם לעולם. One more time. לדור ודור,
דור ודור,
לדור ודור,
דור ודור,
לדור ודור נגיד לך. לדור ודור,
דור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור נגיד כל לך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו, ועמתנו לא ימוש, לעולם לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
We're going to take a few moments now for us to offer our own prayers in silence. If, as Cantor suggested, you might like to share a note or two about what you're reflecting on or praying about this Shabbat morning, you can feel free to type it into the chat. If the Cantor is able to see that list of chat and she's able to share some of those prayers, we'll do that in just a moment. We're going to take just a second now quietly for our own individual reflection and prayer.
Shalom, Tova, Uvracha, Sim Shalom, Tova, Uvracha, Sim Shalom, Tova, Uvracha, Sim Shalom, Tova, Uvracha. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. V'rachamim, sim shalom. Tova, uvracha. Sim shalom, tova, uvracha. Aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Amorecha, sim shalom. Tova, uvracha, sim shalom, tova, uvracha. We have a little bit of sharing. Patricia Barnes Baker says she's very grateful to us that we have helped her through these difficult days, to everyone. And may the Lord bring blessings to all. We'll sing one more time. Sim shalom, tova, uvracha. Sim shalom, tova, uvracha. Pray for hope for better days. Tova, uvracha.
Thank you for sharing your prayers, those of you that did, and thank you for doing the praying that you're doing, those of you that did so inwardly. I know this is a time of especially fruitful and heartful prayer. All of us, even those of us that are not used to praying, somehow this time in our history and in our lives brings us to a newfound relationship with what is transcendent and what is beyond us. This is the time in our service when we turn to the words of Torah. Like so much else these days, our service for the reading of Torah is a little different on these days when we don't have a community around us, we don't have a holy ark, we don't have a Torah scroll around us, but Cantor is going to be reading this morning from a section of Parshat Tzav, which is our Torah portion for this week. Tzav comes from the book of Leviticus, Cantor is going to be reading from chapter 8 of Leviticus. She's going to be reading 8 starting on verse 22, and she has a little bit of wisdom to share with us about the reading that we're doing this morning, so I'll pass it on to her.
So I have to admit I got a little excited about the portion this morning because I was looking for which verses to read, and I found a section that I had prepared for a student of mine when I worked in Aspen. Her name's Eliana, and it has this really cool little trope, and the trope is this ancient art of storytelling that we have, that it's one of my favorite parts of being Jewish. And there's this one trope. It's this little symbol. It's how we sing the Torah. And this one little symbol that appears only 4 times in the entire Torah. It's called a shalshelet. And so I'm always excited when one appears. And it's a little bit troubling. It is on the word slaughtered. It was slaughtered. And what we're hearing, what you'll hear this morning as I'm chanting, I'm going to chant in both Hebrew and English, is this very elaborate ritual of sacrificing this ram and what Moses does with the blood. And so I think that this, as you'll hear this shalshelet, so a shalshelet goes like this: shalshelet. It has a lot of little notes to it. It's up and down. And so it just makes me think that the process of the sacrifice was also very intricate and elaborate. And so you'll hear a little bit about that as I chant this morning. ויקרב את האיל השני אל המילואים, וישמחו אהרון ובניו את ידיהם על ראש האיל, וישחט ויקח משה מדמו וייתן על תנוך אוזן אהרון הימנית ועל בוהן ידו הימנית ועל בוהן רגלו הימנית, ויקרב את בני אהרון וייתן משה מן הדם על תנוך אוזנם הימנית ועל בוהן ידם הימנית ועל בוהן רגלם הימנית, ויזרוק משה את הדם על המזבח סביב. Moses brought forward the second ram, the ram of ordination. Then laid their hands, Aaron and his sons, their hands on the head of the ram. It was slaughtered. Then Moses took from its blood, and he put it on the ridge of Aaron's right ear, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. Moses brought forward the sons of Aaron. Then Moses put some of the blood on the ridges of their right ears, and on the thumbs of their right hands, and on the big toes of their right feet. Then Moses dashed the blood on every side of the altar.
Beautiful. Thank you, Cantor. That is a not quite once a year, but 4 times a year opportunity for us to hear that shalshelet. It was beautiful. Thank you. This time is our time to take advantage of this moment of togetherness and sanctity and prayer to offer mishaberach. Every time, right after we hear the words of Torah, is our time that we offer a prayer for healing. We know that so many in our community, in our congregation, certainly in our city and in our world, are suffering these days. So this prayer for health and recovery seems to take on new meaning and new importance this time. So I want to encourage you to think about people who are in need of our prayers on this morning. If you'd like to say the names out loud, you can do so. If you'd like to meditate on the names or hold them in your heart, you may do so. Certainly, I know that all of our prayers are with everyone who is struggling on this morning and those who love them, trying to make their way from sickness back to health again. So we hold all of them in our hearts. We hold their names in our mouths and in our minds as we turn in our prayer books to page 253 and offer a mishaberach together.
Mi shebeirach avoteinu mikor habracha ve'imotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishebeirach imotenu mikor habracha avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Before we do a little bit more learning together, just a few short announcements about some things you need to be aware of in our community and on our calendar. As I assume most of us know by now, all of the temple's programs and services and meetings have been either moved to electronic platforms or postponed or canceled entirely. This is going to be the case through May the 4th. We'll continue to provide links and updates to our programming schedule, including what will be happening with Shabbat worship on the website. That is always going to be the best place for you to look for updated information. Just this past week, we launched a page with Passover resources that will continue to fill and update with the most timely information about how you can celebrate the holiday in your homes. We do want to make sure that everyone is safe and careful about how you're celebrating Passover with the members of your own household this year, to make sure that we can do our part to ensure the safety and health and well-being of our community. Our whole Emanu clergy team will be leading a virtual Seder for you to join and be a part of and watch next Wednesday, regardless of when your own personal Seder starts. Be on the lookout for details about that virtual Seder in our synagogue communications and on that Passover resource website. Please, this is a very important one. I want to ask that all of you will save the date on your calendars to join us online for our annual meeting. It's very important that we get a quorum for this meeting, even when we only do it virtually and electronically. So please mark the date and time in your calendar. Sunday, April 19th at 9:30 in the morning. This meeting will be held via Zoom webinar, and pre-registration will begin online on Wednesday, April the 8th. Please make a point of being with us so that we can elect our new slate of officers and then have a chance to connect as a whole congregational community. Lastly, as one more reminder, please stay up to date on our messaging, locate how to access our program and worship offerings, learn about how we're working with families about on their life cycle observances and more. Visit our coronavirus response page on the website. Again, the website, emmanuelhouston.org, and you'll be looking for the coronavirus response tab. And so now I want to share, as promised, a little bit of learning with you this morning. This morning, I want to share with you something that I learned about from a teacher that I studied with several years ago, who did some of his doctoral research at the Archives of the Jewish Folktale in Haifa. It's an amazing place, this place that collects and archives and catalogs all of the Jewish folktales that have and had been told throughout Jewish life and the Jewish world from all over the globe. And when I studied with this scholar, he opened his session with a provocative question. He asked, who do you think is the character who shows up in more Jewish folktales than any other? I'll give you a second to think about what character that might be that shows up in folktales than any other. So when we were together learning with this scholar, the folks around the room offered their guesses. And of course, the guesses included Moses and Abraham. Some people named well-known rabbis. some people named famous Jewish politicians or philosophers, and all of us were wrong. The answer to the question of which character shows up in more Jewish folktales than any other across the entire observance spectrum across the globe, whether you're talking about Ashkenazi or Sephardic stories, whether you're talking about stories from Afghanistan or Eastern Europe or Iran or Egypt or Israel, the person who shows up in more Jewish folktales than any other is Elijah the prophet. Everywhere you go, Jews are fascinated by the character of Elijah the prophet, and he shows up in the stories that rabbis and storytellers and parents tell for centuries and centuries. And there are a few different tropes, a few different ways that Elijah shows up in these stories. Frequently, he shows up disguised, often as a beggar, and he comes in these stories to find out who in the Jewish community is generous with giving tzedakah, and then he rewards the people that are generous and spreads misfortune and curse to those who are not generous. Sometimes one of the most familiar themes we may be aware of with Elijah is that he is invited to show up at every Brit Milah, every ceremony of naming new babies, to bring new lives into the covenant. And he's also a character in many stories in which his presence brings fertility to couples that are praying for children. Something else that I learned about Elijah is that if you've ever misplaced something, if you've lost your keys or your wallet or your glasses and you don't know where they are, and then finally you find that lost object again, the one who restored that lost object to you was the prophet Elijah. This is one of his tricks. He finds things that are lost and returns them to their owners. The rabbis, people that studied and debated about Jewish law, frequently turned to Elijah as the one who would resolve the legal disputes that they couldn't find an answer to. The rabbis frequently said that even if the two of the parties who were arguing, couldn't find an answer to their question, eventually Elijah would return to them and give them the answer that they'd been seeking. And of course, the reason that I bring up Elijah today is that one of Elijah's most familiar characteristics is that he's invited to every Passover Seder. Everywhere we go, regardless of who you are or how you observe, one of the most universally upheld customs is that we open the door to invite the prophet Elijah in. We pour a generous cup of wine for him so that he'll feel welcome to sit down and stay with us for a while at our homes as we observe the Seder. So knowing now what we know about how universal and how common the presence of Elijah is in all of these stories, we might ask why he's so popular. Why does he show up again and again? Why is he so regular a fixture in these Jewish folktales? One of the scholars' suggestions is that because Elijah, unlike any other biblical character, bridges the gap between human and divine. He bridges the divide between earth and heaven. Some of these legends arose because the stories about him in the Bible, which you'll find in the book of Kings, tell us that when Elijah, at the end of Elijah's life, he ascended to heaven without having to go through the difficult details of actually dying. So Elijah went fully alive up to heaven. Since then, according to legend, he's been able to traverse that distance between heaven and earth, coming down to interact with people whenever circumstances warranted it. And also that Elijah is able to take different forms in different circumstances. Throughout all of these stories, Elijah comes to recognize and fulfill whatever kind of redemption is needed the most to the central character in those stories. For rabbis, that means the resolution of legal arguments. For new parents or infertile parents, it means the assurance that a new baby will be brought to earth and protected on its way through the world. For people who are committed to the pursuit of generosity, charity, and social justice, Elijah comes to reassure and encourage us when we give to the poor, when we provide sustenance to people who are hungry, and when we spend time looking out for those who are needy in our communities. So from that perspective, maybe Elijah is so compelling and so popular because he comes to be the bearer of a kind of Jewish karma, which is of course not a Jewish concept, but Elijah comes to reward people who uphold their religious obligations and to deliver warning, rebuke, and punishment to those who don't. Sometimes it feels like it would make it much easier for all of us to behave righteously if we knew that our good deeds would be rewarded instantaneously at the hands of a prophet like Elijah. It would be great if we had that kind of assurance. And that's what those stories about Elijah bring us. They bring us that there's someone looking out for us. that despite our anxiety, despite our uncertainty and our fear, there's someone supervising everything, whose job it will be sooner or later to set everything straight that had become crooked and confused. That's what Elijah comes to grant us in his appearance in Jewish folklore and from his invited position at all of our Seder tables. Now, I didn't know any of that stuff when I was a kid growing up. When my family set a place for Elijah at the table, I didn't know any of this, but I was fascinated by the ritual, pouring that cup of wine for Elijah, about opening the door to let him come in. But the one thing that was very clear to me and that still remains with me as a very, very vivid memory as an adult, that I had a really pressing and troubling question when I was a kid that no one seemed to answer. How do we deal with the fact that despite all of these preparations, Elijah never seems to show up? We set a great big cup of wine for him. We set a place at the table. We opened the door, and I never saw Elijah come in at all. And now as an adult, that question is troubling in a new way, knowing as we do that Elijah's significance in Jewish thought and legend is that he's always here. He's always watching, ready to intervene at any opportunity to help those who are in need and to encourage those who are kind and generous. Isn't it maybe a terrible reality that year after year, our front doors are opened and the wine in the prophet's cup remains untouched? The only answer that I can think of now as an adult is that maybe Elijah's absence, or at least Elijah's invisibility, is somehow a deliberate part of this experience. That the empty chair at the table is somehow intended to remain empty to bring about the religious goals of Passover. So what are those religious goals, and how can an invisible or absent prophet come to resolve those questions? So the best answer I can come up with is that part of the answer is the line with which every Passover Seder is concluded: next year in Jerusalem. The point may be that Elijah's absence is the thing that forces us to enunciate our hope about the future. It forces us to recognize that we are not in Jerusalem. We're not redeemed. The Messiah hasn't come. The enslaved haven't been freed. The hungry haven't been fed. All of us are still somehow enslaved and held in thrall to the things that have kept us captive all year long. Maybe on Passover, Elijah's role switches from the kind of character he is in all those folk tales. In all of those stories, it's his mysterious, surprising, joyful appearance that saves the day. But on Passover, it is his consistent and frustrating absence that makes us forge ahead toward the next year in a redeemed Jerusalem. In all of those folktales, Elijah is the prophet who serves as a kind of blank screen onto which we can project an expression of whatever kind of redemption is most important to us. His are stories about a prophet who appears whenever he is needed. So it's even more remarkable that on Passover, he becomes a prophet who maybe fails to appear. That's the point of his role, maybe, when the central motif, the primary hope on this holiday, is for liberation of the oppressed, and Elijah doesn't come to liberate them. He's not here to bring about the liberation for us. Elijah's absence is what pushes us forward to bring about redemption in our lives and in our world. All of us, I imagine, on this Passover, which is going to look very different from every other Passover in our Jewish lives, all of us are imagining something very specific about what redemption might look like. All of us have personal experiences or anecdotal stories that we're familiar with about people that need to be saved and redeemed. People who are ill, people who are grieving, people who feel lonely and isolated and separated from their community because of the precautions that all of us need to take. And all of us have to come to grips with the fact that Elijah is not going to fix those things for us. And so on this Passover, we become even more keenly aware of our own particular personal responsibility to bring redemption, to think about the things that we can do to help make those who are alone feel less lonely, to help those who are grieving feel less sad, to help those who are ill feel more comfortable in their recovery. Ultimately, what we learn from Elijah's absence at our Passover tables is that if real life was like those folk tales, our existence would be very, very different, and I think much less satisfying. I think we'd be less interested in giving generously if we'd figured out this system of reward and punishment. We'd only give what we had to in order to merit the arrival of Elijah to give us a reward. We maybe wouldn't engage in discussion about law or ethics or Torah that was as spirited if we always knew that we could rely on Elijah's arrival to tell us what the right answers were to every difficult question. If hope is instantaneously fulfilled, hoping becomes obsolete, and the practice of living with hope becomes unnecessary. As we know, as certainty ascends, hope diminishes. And Passover isn't a time of certainty, it's a time of dark, holy mystery. This Shabbat and this holiday time isn't about vindication. It's not about the kind of relief that the characters of those folk tales felt when Elijah showed up and saved the day. It's about the mystery and the yearning of our own private experiences of what is holy and what is demanded of us. It's about what happens when we're alone, feeling the awesome presence of something larger than us pass by in the darkness. I want to close with one last story about Elijah. This was a story that was written around the end of the 10th century, and scholars believe that it was written by someone in the Jewish community in Italy. And the story goes like this. Elijah the prophet said, "Once when I was traveling from place to place," Elijah said, "a certain man came to me and he asked me about a matter of Torah. He said, 'My master Elijah, there are two things in my heart that I love with a very great love, the Torah and the people Israel, but I do not know which of them should come first.' Elijah replied to the man, 'Generally people say that Torah is to be put first at all times and before all else, but I say that the people Israel comes first.'" Elijah comes to teach us about the and the holiness of being part of a community. And his absence comes to remind us that redemption doesn't always arrive from beyond ourselves. Redemption, liberation, and comfort are things that we people can engineer by looking out for each other, by relying on the other members of our community, and by seeing to it that we uphold our obligation to them when they are ill, when they are grieving, and when they are alone. So on this Shabbat and on this Passover that will look very, very different from everyone before them, I want to encourage all of us to do what we can to uphold our obligation to our community, to bring safety and wholeness and redemption to those who need it wherever they are. Shabbat Shalom and an early Chag Sameach. Speaking of the value and the promise of being part of a supportive and loving community at the times when we need it in our grief and in our memory, we turn now to the sacred obligation of Kaddish. For those who are grieving, Kaddish looks very different too. This is a time that we are grieving alone in our homes instead of in the embrace of a community. So we will do what we can to create a virtual community to uphold and lift up all who are grieving and in mourning on this Shabbat. And so our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, and those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. On this Shabbat, we call to mind the name of Herman Liu, who was laid to rest in the week now ended. If there are others who are in mourning, whose names, who are remembering the names of those they have lost, if you'd like to share those names now aloud, or in our chat, or in your heart, I'll give you just a moment now to share those names. And so the memories of all the departed are with us now as we rise inwardly or outwardly and turn in our prayer books to page 294 for the recitation of Kaddish, page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba. Ve'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chay d'chol Beit Yisrael. V'agala v'zman kariv imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam lo me'alma. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemed kudsha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'amav imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Our prayer is that God's presence will remain with you as you go forth inwardly and outwardly, and that God's presence will be in our hands and in our hearts as we do what we can to bring comfort and relief to a world and to a community that is suffering and struggling. May we be God's presence in the world. May our hands be God's hands. May our deeds be God's deeds. Amen.
Amen. And it wouldn't be Shabbat without a little Vishamru. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריתולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריתולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריתולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריתולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם בריתולם.
Al Kain Berach Adonai Tov HaShabbat V'Kadshehu Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Borei Peri HaGafen.
Amen. And before we say Motzi, I just wanted to thank David Tanner, who has been behind the scenes this morning, making this all happen, making all the magic happen. It's quite a process to get everything going. So we're really thankful to him. And David, maybe you can do a little split screen. So Rabbi and I are both on the screen for the Motzi. That'd be gallery view. So we can see each other. And if you have a little challah or a cracker or something, before you clean out your chametz, or you don't, or whatever you're doing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. And we wish you Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.